Marcia de los Santos arrived from Argentina after her parents decided to flee the military dictatorship during the Dirty War, which followed the overthrow of Isabel Perón in Argentina. Marcia did not speak English when she arrived in 1979 and found life adjusting to her new home very difficult. "I just didn't understand how things were done," she says. Marcia has been a producer of the SBS studios in Melbourne for more than 10 years.
I came to Australia with my parents when I was young. I was 11 years old. Mum and Dad came from Argentina, and with my brother and younger sister. And they came for economic reasons, for political reasons as well. They weren't being persecuted politically in any way, but they just wanted a better future for their children. It was during the dictatorship in Argentina in the 70s, not much freedom of speech. And the future was quite uncertain, and they just weren't happy with what laid ahead for us.
Did they speak any English?
They did speak a little bit because they'd studied English, but you know, very basic English. So when they came here, they kept going to classes to learn English, and yeah, so it's very basic.
Was Australia at that stage, do you think, more open to migration from other places?
There was no stigma attached to admitting racism. In fact, I remember clearly in high school, this is in year 11, in a Catholic school, we were in an economics class, and I remember, you know, race came up, the subject of nationality and race. And I remember one particular student getting up and saying that she was racist and that she was fine about it, and that almost like she was proud of it and that there was nothing wrong with it. And I think it's the whole legacy of the White Australia was still there, even though the policy had been abolished. It existed within homes, and yeah, people didn't feel that it was such a bad thing to express it. So that's changed, I think.
What have you noticed in terms of the changes towards you coming from somewhere else?
I think on a general basis though, if I go by people who I meet through my children's schools, for example, so you're talking about parents and, you know, people, new workmates, that kind of thing. I think everybody is behind multiculturalism and diversity, and nobody wants to be called a racist anymore.
Well, of course, you're working in a place that is at the very core of multiculturalism too. So I presume you'd see less of it in here than obviously you would just at the supermarket or somewhere else.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, that's why when you asked me about how has that changed towards you, well, because I'm surrounded by people who are from different cultures, we embrace it and we think it's great, you know, so it's about bringing the different cultures together and making, you know, a better Australia. And also understanding the concept that everything changes, nothing stays the same, it's impossible. Because once we come here, I think we all are united by that universal theme, which is you're a migrant. So then there's all these things that you share with people in that situation, no matter where you come from, whether you're white, brown, you're on the same page almost. And even Australians who've been here for many generations find that their lives are enriched by those experiences when they come in contact with those communities, either through friends or their children, and in some cases through marriage.
Where do you think we're going in the next 10 years as a multicultural society?
I think we'll get more multicultural, definitely. If you look at the stats, you know, there's more than 50% of the Australian population has been born overseas or has a parent who was born overseas. So it's not going to go away. The cultural diversity is here to stay. And I think Australians in general will become incredibly global and knowledgeable about other cultures.
Was education something that you felt was going to be really important to you in terms of your place in Australia?
Yeah, it was fundamental. Yeah, it was what I felt I needed to do in order to feel like I succeeded. My main job was to get an education, you know, so, and that's what I did. So it was, yeah, really important.
And with your own daughters now?
I'm very open to them being creative about what they want to do and entrepreneurial. And I think that in the future, the answer isn't only in university, and also because you can access education in different ways today.
Is there one thing that you think you'd like to see change in Australia to make what you see as being a multicultural country work even better?
I think we're on the right path. I really do. I think we're on the right path. I think that it's good to talk about these issues. I think it's good to have debate. I am support free speech, even if people say hurtful things against myself and about things that I feel very passionate about. But I think it's good to have different views in a society, because that's what makes a great democracy. So I wouldn't want Australia to become a nation where views are shut down, no matter how horrible they might be. And that's because I come from a country too that I lived under a military dictatorship, and that was one thing that didn't exist. And the results were horrible. Like even today in Argentina, it's not about what you think and what I think. It's about what I think overriding what you think. It's not about living together with different views. And I think if in Australia we can achieve that, living in Australia with different views and behaving in a civilised way, that is the first step for a conversation and for conflicts, if there are any conflicts, to be overcome. Because if you don't talk, you can't overcome anything.
So your vision of, you know, multicultural Australia is more of the same, basically? Is that how you see it?
Well, as long as we keep an immigration program opened, we will have very strong diversity, very evident diversity. I mean, I catch the train or I'm walking in the street and I see an African young guy with an Aussie accent, or an Asian girl serving me at the shops and she speaks with a very Aussie accent. So, yeah, that's already happening.
Is the gate opened, or is, you know, they talk about the horses bolted? 1 in 2 people have got some family born overseas, that you can really reverse it. How can you reverse this?
Oh, no, you can't reverse it. Absolutely not. No, you can't reverse it. But it's going to be different. I mean, Australia's got a huge Asian flavour, you know, and that's part of our identity, much more so now than when I was younger. I mean, there was a big Vietnamese community when I grew up in Australia, and now that community is very Australian. They're very entrepreneurial and they've influenced, you know, culture in such an amazing way. It's been wonderful. I think there is no going back. I mean, how could you go back? There's so many people who call this country home and who love it and who are Australian. So it's here to stay, I would say, multiculturalism.